It's 0-0 in this European tie last 16 second leg. Manchester United leading 5-0 from the first leg 146 days ago, would you believe? But the best chance in these opening minutes falling to the Austrians, the visitors, on 9. Romero in the United goal tonight. He could only watch a header.
Вот зараза-то, а? Ну ладно, продолжаем. Продолжаем бальные танцы.
Ever so much, Juliet. Just to go one serious note, should Mercedes have done more or worked out that they were about to have a problem with both cars? Because I was shouting at my producer going, I can see the tyres, they're in trouble. But should they, Jolyon, have reacted quicker? Could they have done anything?
They could, in hindsight, they'll have seen that they could have done something to save a 1-2 finish quite easily, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. And if they pitted with, 10 laps to go, they'd have come out behind Verstappen. So they'd have lost track position, but they'd have been just way quicker on new soft tyres. Verstappen at the end of the race was about 3 or 4 seconds quicker than those Mercedes were doing before. So they would have just passed him easily and won the race with a tyre that could easily go to the end. But to be honest, fair play to Verstappen, because he forced the issue and meant that they didn't have a free pit stop to do it. And no one likes to pass Verstappen for a race win, so you'd avoid that if you can. And basically it comes down to the fact that they thought that the tyres would go to the end. They could have actually even pitted Lewis Hamilton onto the final lap. That's the one that would have just made it so much easier. Verstappen pitted, went for the fastest lap point. Mercedes then did have a free pit stop window to just pit Hamilton onto the final lap. He wouldn't have got fastest lap because he would have started it coming out the pit lane. But I guess at that point, you just sort of think, the tyres have done 738 laps. I reckon they'll get another 18. Hamilton's not complaining. Seems all fine.
Yeah, well, as it happens, Jolyon, James Vowles, the Mercedes chief strategist, he's done one of Mercedes' sort of videos that they do after every race, explaining various key moments of what happened. And he's actually addressed that point. And he said they did think about, they said that's the obvious thing they could have done was pit Hamilton on the last lap, but there's obviously a risk in having a pit stop, he said. And the other thing was they thought, because they had such a lead over Verstappen, they figured that, Hamilton could drive around 15 seconds off the pace on that final lap in the middle of the road, and the risk was minimal. But obviously, in hindsight,
try telling a Formula One driver to drive the final lap 15 seconds off the pace.
And in hindsight, it was a mistake, as he admitted, because obviously he did have the failure.
And the other thing was that they did mention in the same video that whilst Valtteri had some warning signs, that he got vibrations through his tyres, he had some warning there may have been a problem. Lewis pretty much got nothing.
Интересно, а они ездили в башню здесь, зафигачили или нет? Да, если да, если я ее где-нибудь увижу, то я тогда позову Люстига и мы будем вместе с ней ее продавать. Ха-ха-ха.
Let's just keep going at this really relatively steady pace and bring it to the end.
You're listening to 5 Live Formula One on Wednesday evening, 23 minutes past 8, ahead of the second race at Silverstone in 2 weeks. It will be the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. And at the moment, you have to say, whilst things are going relatively well for people at Mercedes, is driving pretty well at the moment. He's managed to get the car on the podium. The team have made no secret of the fact that the car isn't, a brilliant car. Yet, last time out, Leclerc managed to finish third. However, his teammate Sebastian Vettel looked to be seriously struggling, finishing in 10th at the weekend.
The result was very poor, but the car was very difficult to drive. I struggled a lot to find my confidence, and I don't know why.
Нет, мужики, ничего, плететесь. Обгоню-ка я вас нафиг с нарушением правил.
For so many laps in the race, and it was the beginning till the end, and there's something that probably doesn't stack up. So you don't. I mean, it was not a very stressful race. I just didn't have a chance. People around me were faster than me. I got overtaken. It was very difficult to manage myself to stay on track. So physically it was not a tough race at all because I could never attack. The car didn't allow me to do what I like. So now we need to have a look why, and obviously we have the next weekend so we can try and do better. It's also, if you look around the lap, there's not one place where maybe I'm driving poorly or there seems to be an issue. It's the whole lap where I'm losing time. So we'll have a look.
It was a pretty horrible weekend for Sebastian Vettel. Jolien, when you lose confidence in a car, and don't say why am I asking you this, you always pick on me, and when you lose confidence in a car as a race driver, how hard is it? I feel mean just asking that question, sorry.
No, I've lost confidence in my car, that was for sure.
Откроем еще в Париже кадровое агентство. А то как так? Приехать в Париж и не открыть кадровое агентство. Ну, сами понимаете, такого я допустить не могу.
These guys are... Vettel's a four-time champ. He doesn't just become one...
Так, только сейчас маленькая мизерная техническая пауза. Так, после маленькой паузы я возвращаюсь, и мы едем дальше по Парижу открывать кадровое агентство. Так. Мы едем. Да, мы едем.
I think there's one issue where that seems to have suited Charles Leclerc a little better. So Sebastian seems to be a lot more comfortable, as I'm sure most drivers are, but he seemed a lot more comfortable when the car's got the downforce underneath him, gives him a bit more confidence.
Как там фильм назывался? Париж, я люблю тебя.
The other side to this whole story, I think, is that, Jolien, I know what you're saying about losing confidence in a car.
Я не был в Париже, но я люблю его.
But I think a driver losing confidence
И не стесняюсь в этом
is as much of a problem. And I think that this whole story that's happened with Ferrari, the way he was essentially dumped, and it wasn't a nice way that he was dumped either. I know from speaking to people there, he feels very sad and let down by the team that he loves, Ferrari. And I've seen drivers go through the system in the past, and once you're mentally checked out of something, and I'm sure this goes to anybody in any job anywhere.
Так. Погнали дальше. Ох уж все эти лаги, все эти разрывы, вся эта прочая дрянь. Во время трансляции это, конечно, очень напрягает.
I just don't think that I understand the confidence point, and I understand that you can mentally check out. If you know you're not going to be there for next year, it will definitely have an effect on him. But such an effect that he can no longer really get within a second of his teammate. It just seems too much.
Эйфелева башня. Я уже позвал Люстига, мы уже готовы ее продавать. На металлолом.
And I know all drivers say they don't read them, but it has to have an effect, in my opinion.
But it's only one bad race.
Well, actually, it's not, Jolien. That's the point. It's two. out of the 4 races so far, he's had 2 races where he said the car's really difficult and I can't drive it. If you remember, Leclerc was second in the first race in Austria and Vettel was nowhere and ended up spinning, having made an embarrassing half overtaking attempt. Then he had 2 good races. Now he's had a bad one in Silverstone. Now, Mark's right. The low downforce thing is an interesting thing because Vettel definitely likes to have the rear end planted, whereas Leclerc is much more comfortable with the car moving around in the same way that Hamilton is. And of course, it's absolutely not a normal thing for him to be a second a lap off the pace. But we only have to look back to last year's Belgian Grand Prix when there was nothing wrong with his car. He was actually second on the grid battle. Leclerc was on pole and he was 8 tenths faster. So it's not inconceivable that Leclerc could be a massive chunk faster than Vettel on a qualifying lap or even in a race. If he's uncomfortable with the car. Now, was he uncomfortable with the Maybe we won't. Just on the confidence thing, just very briefly, he's got a lot to prove this year. He wants to carry on Formula 1. He got beaten by Leclerc last year. Leclerc was only in his second season in F1 and his first year in Ferrari, so I think Vettel will be absolutely determined to have a strong season this year. So I'd be surprised if he's sort of mentally checked out. But that's obviously what we can't judge is how he's been affected psychologically, subconsciously by this whole scenario.
But also, he had really poor reliability last weekend. It's worth saying. He missed all of FP1. He was in and out of the car for FP2. And I know certainly a mechanic would not like to admit it, but when the car's being put together, taken apart that many times through a weekend, there's a chance that something might have gone amiss or something has happened, which would explain more accurately why he's this far away. I don't believe. I think we're going to see Vettel return to at least some level of form, because he might as well have not been there last weekend almost. He was just a non-event, even in the midfield battle, when Leclerc showed that Ferrari have actually made good progress.
I have seen it time and time again when a driver is in the middle of signing contracts or trying to work out what to do going forward with career. They kind of get a little bit lost on track. Then they sign on the dotted line for somebody else, and all of a sudden they relax and they are in a better zone.
Помимо того, что
доставить
в Париж груз, уж точно его вот за этим посетить стоило обязательно. Кстати, что у нас там с этим всеми?
Once that contract is signed, if it is signed, do you think Sebastian Vettel will just ease back, enjoy the racing and get on with it? Andrew Benson is very
весь юг не открыт. Ну, как раз вот там, где я был. Марсель, Ницца, ну, понятно. Так, надо съездить.
The fact that he's a 4-time world champion, number of people in Formula 1 say, yes, he's a 4-time world champion, but he's also had extremely good equipment through his career. In fact, Sergio Perez made that point himself a couple of races ago.